Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining us tonight on Career Companion Career Journeys.
Hey, Beth. Thanks so much for having me.
You're more than welcome. Now, look, I know you're buckled in tonight from London.
Mhm.
So, to begin with, can you tell us what you do for work and where you're currently working?
Sure. By trade, I'm an accountant. My current role is I'm the head of accounting for Aterian, which is a US-based e-commerce company. So we sell stuff on Amazon. We've got brands like Squatty Potty. We sell essential oils, mini fridges, dehumidifiers, photo paper. It's a bit of everything.
And what is it you do day in, day out in your job for anyone who doesn't know what your job actually is?
Yeah, so I guess I'm probably the lead of the accounting team. I manage our team through the month end close process. We're doing accounts payable, we're running payroll, kind of all of those standard accounting functions that most businesses have end to end. So I've got a team of about eight and they're based across the Philippines, the US, here in the UK. It's really enjoyable. I love it.
So that's a lot of time zones you just mentioned there. You're working across like London and the US in itself. How do you find managing teams? I guess cross country. Saying that wrong. Globally, how do you find managing teams globally?
Around the world. It's not easy. You've really got to have a think about be well planned in advance. It's not as simple as kind of sticking your head over the wall to say, "Hey, do you have that thing that I need?" You have to figure out, well, if I need that in 3 hours, I've got to remember that they log off 4 hours ago. You can't do things as much on the fly. You've really got to be well planned and have really good systems and processes in place, and like I said, a regimented way of operating. I think the other part is flexibility. You could say that my job would be a typical 9 to 5, but because of those time zones, there's got to be some flexibility in there, which works both ways, which I really enjoy. It can work flexibly in terms of I move for the business, but the business moves for me as well. I'm quite lucky in that way.
And is that something you looked for when you were going for this job? Did you look for that flexibility piece?
No, I didn't. I was looking for a role, as you do. I'd finished up a contract, a little bit unexpected, and then this job came across my desk. It was a little bit unorthodox, but the thing that attracted me to this role was kind of it's playing in the Amazon space, which is huge at the time, certainly 2 or 3 years ago, only getting bigger. And I thought that it was a really interesting role. When I took it, it was looking to grow the business here in Europe. And then as that's evolved, I've become more and more involved in the business in the US and kind of managing the team overall. I'd say I've really been lucky to kind of get in the spot that I did, and see how that's developed. And I guess all I could do is the best work that I could day to day, and contribute to the company. And I feel I've been rewarded for that. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Now, I have so many questions to ask right now around how you do your job now and how it gets better and the rest of it. But I want to know your full career journey right now. So, for everyone back home, to get to where you are today, first question,
How does it happen?
no. Did you think this is what you were going to be doing in high school?
Do you know what? Yeah, it totally was. Yeah,
One, one so
one.
far.
Well, yeah, it was a case of I did accountancy as a unit in grade 9. I got marks that I was very happy with, and I didn't feel I worked very hard to get them. So, for whatever reason, this career just came really naturally to me. So it was a topic that I continued through school, continued to get good marks, continued to really enjoy. And then when it came to deciding what to do at university, I was like, well, this has worked so far. Maybe it shows complete lack of creativity. But I've just I've effectively got on the roller coaster, and it just keeps going. I've not had to make well, I don't feel like I've had to make too many career decisions in terms of pivots that I see many people make. It's very much a just continue up the levels kind of career.
So now I'm going to rip this all apart because I think this
Sure.
is so interesting what you've just said and how your um, options, career projectives, and everything, and also just in general, accounting as a, I guess, as a bigger piece of the puzzle. You were taught something in your high school curriculum that could land you a job later on in life, and you latched on that.
100%. Like the building blocks of accounting is this concept of debits and credits, which I guess as I've reflected on more, it's just a big Sudoku puzzle. Like you kind of everything kind of has to have its little spot in the grid. So there's an element of problem solving across that. The foundation of accounting is debits and credits, and it's all like extra levels and skills from there. So if I look at people I've worked with and peers, because I've had that experience so much earlier, like there is a learning curve involved in that. So I was ahead of the curve, being solid on my debits and credits, and then I could kind of latch onto the harder topics as they were coming up. Of course, like, everybody catches up eventually. I've been in this career now for a little too long.
Yeah.
15 years almost. So yeah, but I think that was really helpful.
But accounting today is not what it was 15 years ago. And it's not what it's going to be in
Never.
another 10 years either, which is where
Yeah,
I think maybe perhaps your career has like it's elevating you consistently, but you still have that foundation piece, right? Because it's what you learned way back basic, way back when in high
yeah.
school. Like you've still got the foundations there that aren't changing, right? You can't
No.
change.
Well, I think it goes back to like I think it's about loans happening in Italian alleys back in the 1300s. They kind of talk to you about like that's how old debits and credits are. And you're right. Like the technology that I'm using now, I would have only dreamed of when I started. Like the level of processing power and enrichment of data that helps you tell the story of the business's performance is just changing every day. Like I'm now using like advanced elements of Excel through Power Query and Power BI. People using data visualizations and like all sorts of tools that is tying information together to really unlock the picture of performance. And then I reflected. So my grandfather was an accountant, and he was telling me that it was uncommon for people to have calculators. You had to add paper ledgers mentally. Like it's wild that that's where we've kind of moved through. But I will say, if anything goes wrong with that technology, having that understanding of how it all works or what it's supposed to look like is how you can, as a human in that machine, still provide a lot of value.
Question.
Mm.
This isn't your career journey. This is more just a statement, and I just want to actually hear your feedback on this.
Sure.
I talk to technology people day in, day out. I talk to different people building products and all the rest of it. Do you think the title accountant today is actually what it is? Or would you change that title to be something else now, like tech accountant or AI, or like what would you call if you had any word you could name what your job is today in comparison to what it was, like what accountants were back when you first learned about them? With technology and everything else you've just mentioned that you're working with now, what would you call your job title?
I like accountant because I'm a big nerd. But if I had to change it, I guess it'd be like
Everything you do now in comparison to
yeah,
what you did when you first entered into the career.
it's almost like a performance coach, right? Like it's a matter of it's measuring information and to try and figure out like how well is the machine of the business working. And
Yeah.
then there's another element of it, which is like in the budgeting and forecasting element, it's well, how good could it be? Which is still all that performance measurement and reporting. So it's kind of coaching in that way. It's I think a lot of great businesses kind of like a lot of like general managers and CEOs kind of have
Yeah.
like an accountant in their back pocket, like they're second in command, who they could look to say, well, this is my big picture. tell me what that might do, positive or negative, to our financial performance. Because love it
I'd
or
love
hate it, that is
I
the
see
way
the
that
CFO
our
as the person pulling every single string in every single business. They are the person looking at how a business is running, how it's
yeah
functioning, and they are pulling all those strings. I actually think the CFO is pivotal for a business's success today. So that performance, crew, like coaching, mentorship that they give the CEO, I
yeah
think, yeah,
it's I think that CEOs are fantastic to kind of have these big picture ideas and visions. But it then kind of they've then got to get the CFO over the hurdle to be like, well, how can I turn this into like a deck that tells me or the board or our investors like what that's going to turn into profit wise or market share or all of these things. So I think that's how you can kind of put the qualitative to the quantitative, so all the way around. Which is at the end of the day, people want to see the kind of the graph moving upwards and to the right. And yeah, I think this your accounting teams are going to be the ones who can empower those great ideas. Even though I do find myself a lot of the time getting in the way of giving the impression I'm getting in people's way of brilliance. It's always me kind of pulling the handbrake to go, hang on, guys. We can't do that for tax reasons, for data flows, for reporting, for it's great. It's very easy to say no. I'm trying to find ways to say maybe, but. So it's like I don't want to kill your vibe, but there's some other stuff we've all got to think about.
I just think accounting is such an interesting world to be in right now, especially with people starting up their own businesses on the side and really needing that guidance and seeking that support. So I can't wait to see what it grows into as well. But look, back onto your career journey. So
Yeah. So where did it start? So
after high school, yeah.
where did it start? So I was studying in Brisbane, Australia. I did a Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in accounting. Very vanilla, like degree equals job. And then I applied for one of the big four. They were offering a vacationer program. So that is over the summer holidays, you come in and kind of do 4 weeks of work to kind of get a taste of what's the industry like and what jobs are there. Because like as we kind of touched on, we do accounting, but like there are many flavors of that. You can be a tax person, you can be a person who does deals. I was in audit. Because that was I gravitated towards. So yeah, I applied for that, and then that turned into what was called a cadetship. So I had 1 year of my university course to go, and then I dropped that down to part time. But I then worked at EY full time, so that worked really great for me because at that point I was kind of a little bit overstudy, and that found a way to really bring the classroom learning from university to life. There were so many times where like I'd experienced something with a client, and then the next week or on that night I'd go to a lecture and we'd be talking about the same thing. That just made the learning for me so much more powerful. So I did that. I was there at EY for I think it was just short of 8 years in Brisbane. I was mostly working in like the mining industry, just because that was what's happening in Queensland. But I also did things like aviation ground handling. I did the theatre company in Queensland. So it was a really great experience to do different types of businesses. I did a quick secondment down in Sydney for 3 months doing insurance. Again, it's people say that like businesses are unique. They've all got their own little accounting hard things, but I found that like the flavor of that debits and credits kind of goes throughout it. So again, it's a fantastic experience to kind of have a bit of a sampler menu of everything that's out there. So then I'd always had this goal of moving to London. So I picked up my stuff and did that. And then while I've been here, I was kind of surfing through different contracts, doing different roles. I was with kind of like BT Group, which is like the equivalent of Telstra. I worked at an international money transfer business, which was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Big data challenges and tech challenges
Yeah,
there.
definitely. Yeah.
And then also I worked for like a movie and film company, which was again the thing I've really liked about being here in London is like the variety of opportunities. There's just lots of them. Not to say that these jobs don't exist in Australia, but there'll be one of them, and you may be the
Yeah.
lucky one person to get into that chair. But there's 10 of those over here, so it's been really exciting.
How did you find that in Australia for 8 years, right? Doing
Yes,
accounting, you're now the top of your class. You know everything what it is to do. I'm presuming at that point in stage you were like, "Yep, I know where I'm going. I know where I
go
can do like I'm comfortable, right?"
yeah,
You moved to London. Did you take a pay cut?
no. I think I was level pegging, and that was only because there is typically when you move internationally, at least I've heard from other people and stuff, they kind of want to go, well, you don't have local market experience.
Yes, yeah,
I didn't put a lot of weight on that, and having been here now 7 years, I don't think it's that relevant. Um, there's
yeah,
not too many things, at least in my field, that you can't pick up or Google, or like there's a good set of literature that you can kind of localize yourself quite well. Again, and maybe that's because as part of my professional body, I have to keep doing what's called CPD, continual professional development. Like I'm
yeah.
always on the lookout for new knowledge. Um, yeah, localization is usually not too difficult. Um,
And
uh, yeah, so
how,
I didn't take a pay cut, and then once I kind of got through that first London role,
yeah.
that wasn't a factor anymore, and yeah, it's been quite lucrative since.
And so, for those accountants out there that are looking to move to London and make the transition and do what you've done, like, because your learning obviously has just gone boom since being over there and doing
Yeah,
the
big time.
contracts and being able to, yeah, to jump onto so many exciting and cool things as well, I guess, in your world. Um, how did you get the jobs? How did you get your first job in London?
It was a slog. I think that I spent so many days in Pret a Manges, which is kind of like the chain cafes here, staring at my computer, putting in applications,
Yeah,
tailoring resumes, tailoring CVs, and you just got to find a way to break through. I think that the difference ended up being finding a recruitment firm in London that kind of got me and understood what my value proposition was.
yeah,
And then they were able to kind of market my skills better than I ever could. I'm not quite sure how the market works in Australia. That's where you come in. But here in London, particularly for accounting, the roles very much go through recruitment firms. So they're doing all of the search for hiring managers. So if you can find, I found a recruitment firm that really understands your career goals, they'll kind of keep an eye out for you of like when a position comes across their desk, they'll kind of go, wait a second, I've kind of got this stable of people, Chris being one of them, that I'd love to let them know that this role has become available and pitch it to you. So it becomes it changes the dynamic a little bit, which is interesting.
yeah. Look, and I think this is something huge we talk about on this platform, and it's why we've got recommended agencies on there because it's so important that you do pair yourself with an agency that understands your value proposition to a
Exactly.
business and what impact you can make. Because a CV can only say so much, but when you partner yourself with a true agency recruiter that really understands A, the businesses they work with, and B, the candidates they're looking for, then I guess it takes all of the pressure out of the job search. When I guess you mentioned you were tailoring your CV and that. When you got the call from the recruiter, were you a bit apprehensive coming from an Australian market where you had your talent acquisition and recruiters aren't huge over here just yet. They're still starting out. They're still bit by bit getting in there and I'm so excited to see this change as well, I guess. But how did you feel when you actually yeah, I guess let down that guard and started working with these recruiters and understanding what they did more?
Yeah, it was a difficult pivot, I would say, because like some of them did feel a bit like used car salespeople or like burn and churn real estate folks who were just trying to get you into any property and all that kind of stuff. So it didn't always feel like it was a valued relationship. They were just trying to like push you into a role to get their commission and move on to the next thing. So um, that's got its place, but it's not really what I'm trying to do with my career journey. So yeah, I don't think it was until about my third contract here that I kind of then ended up finding that sweet spot of recruiters that worked for me and I worked for them, in a symbiotic relationship.
Do you know the recruiters' names? If you could say them by first name now, if you were to talk to them, or is there a few? Do you have like 3 or 4 that
It's a
you
few
work
firms, and I think also like that was going back getting on 4 years ago now. So they moved firms and all that kind of thing. I can of course look up my records and my emails, and I'll have them all in there. But more recently, I've been working with Global Accounting Network, Elliot Golds over there, no relation. He and the team have been fantastic at keeping in touch and just doing updates and kind of checking in and how am I enjoying this role and things that I'd like to change about it. And because hey, there's always things about the job that you love that you wish were slightly different. But it's all about how much of those can you change and how much of those are just the cost of doing business. So
And how have you found the change from being, this is huge, permanent 8 years, same company,
yeah,
to contracting? Like what? Like,
it was a big adjustment because, and I think a part of that also was there's visa complications being an Aussie in London. I would have probably preferred to have been in more permanent work, but just because, at least when I first got here, I was on that 2-year visa.
yeah,
It's not really the done thing to put people on permanent contracts when they've kind of got a limited time visa. So, as a result of those shorter contracts, you were kind of pitch hitting for on particular project work. At that time, it was when the revenue standard was changing, so there was a lot of people trying to change their processes rapidly to implement that. So you go, well, you'd of course prefer to be more established in a role and kind of feel like it's a bit more homely versus kind of these quick projects. That said, plenty of learning opportunities when like you're kind of at the thin edge of the wedge on like the important issues. Like I'd got into these revenue projects, and these are things that like the senior management care about, like because it affects their performance, their bonuses, all this kind of stuff. So like it was again being at the important point, which I guess this is where I'd come from with EY. Like again, we're reporting to boards and C-suite at that point. You may not get that as the company accountant, senior financial accountant within a business permanently. So I guess I really enjoyed those touch points because with C-suite, because that's when it's kind of hard and interesting. And at least for myself, I find that's when I do my best work.
and how long have you been in London for now in total?
I always get this wrong, so I guess I think I'd call it 6.5 years. This is where everybody's going to say that the accountant should be able to do the math. I can't do it. Since January 2018.
Wow. Okay. So you went through their lockdowns and you still kept your job, and that's interesting. Accountants didn't lose their jobs over that time period.
Well, it was interesting. I one of my contracts did say during the pandemic, okay, all contractors are getting a 20% pay cut tomorrow, and this is because of the pandemic. Now, again, I had a pretty firm idea of what I was worth and what I thought was acceptable for my skills. I told my key contact in the role that like I disagreed and I'd be looking for other gigs. And I think it was after that reduction came in, I think I was on that rate for a week, and then I'd already teed up my next role. So it's a matter of I think upon reflecting on, I knew I was going to talk to you about, and I was thinking about the key parts of my career journey is kind of having a firm idea of I guess your goals and how you can provide value to companies, and as best you can not compromising on that. I know that's a privileged position to be in, to be able to go like not having to take the next job because like bills are due. It's a lifestyle adaptation. not to get into that spot. But yeah, like I found that my career has benefited in being able to be a little bit more selective with roles that I take.
It also takes a lot of confidence and strength
Yeah,
and coaching. Like you didn't just learn when you were going to step into a London market, or hey, I'm going to take whatever job I can get because I need to get my foot on the ground and the rest of it. You were like, actually, no, I'm going to find one that values who I am and what I do and what I can bring.
yeah.
Whereas I know myself, I moved to London and straight away I took a like $82,000 pay cut. Like
Oh,
it was massive because I listened to what people were telling me and I took that as gospel. Like I was an immigrant looking for work, so take the pay cut and that's what you do. I worked my way up, don't get me wrong. I worked my way up in 6 months
yeah.
and I
You get
passed.
that.
Yeah, yeah. But like it was a hard pill to swallow. So I guess what advice do you have for people out there that are entering any international like change in their career, especially Aussies to London? Like we do it, and I think it's going to become
Yeah.
more prevalent again now that all the borders are open. We can all travel again. Everything's back to normal. What advice do you have for anyone that's just finishing uni or has been in their career for 4 years since the start of the pandemic to now? What advice would you give them?
I think it's there's a lot of value in tapping into kind of like your local expat groups wherever that's possible. So things like Aussies in London, there's certainly plenty of advice around there. There's also things like the Chartered Accountants of Australia and New Zealand. They've got like local chapters that put on events, and certainly like for young CAs as well. So definitely worth getting along to those. Because I went to one recently, and it was just great to see people like trading war stories, like things that have worked for them, things that have not worked for them. So it's a great way to not have to learn each of the lessons yourself. You can borrow somebody's fortunes or misfortunes and take that into your own decision making going forward. There was maybe this is a bit of a tangent, but there was a guy there I was talking to. He was saying, "Oh, I've taken my first role. It's a 12-month contract, and I hate it." I was like, "Well, you're on a 2-year visa. Do you want to do half of that time in a role that you can't stand?" Um, there are ways that you can wrap that up sooner than that. Like, and it's a little bit aggressive. And again, I think he'd probably come from where I'd done, which is he'd have a permanent role, and he kind of thought a contract is a contract. It's like, well, no, these things can always be negotiated. If you're not happy, you're not going to do your best work. So the company's not winning, and you're not winning. So it's best to maybe find another way.
I think you've touched on something here, which is very heated and interesting topic. So there's a new thing that's around, and it's called fractional hiring.
Right.
And people in the past have said you hire a contractor to get in and do a piece of work, right? But it's only a segment of work. It's not
Yeah.
really a piece of work. Whereas this fractional hiring, uh, I'm so intrigued to see how it grows because it's where you hire an expert in to come in and do a whole packet of work, but you pay them more than a contractor rate. You actually pay them what their like full salary will be you could within 6 months. So it is a full piece of work that you're delivering. And my question now is to hiring managers. What what do you get out of someone who's been in a career for 4 years in the same institution compared to someone who's been doing contracting, learning new things, adapting, changing, and at the speed they've had to? So, my question is when you see a CV, and in the past, the mentality was if someone hadn't had 2 year work stints, one after the other, you didn't even look at their CV.
Okay.
I think that there is going to be a new world of work where it's 6 month stints is what you do and you look for achievements and objectives, and I know there's a place for core talent and everything out there, but what are your thoughts on that as a
It's fascinating. So I have hired across the roles that I've been in. I've got my current team, I had the last team I had to stand up for a project. It was extensive recruiting. I think that in terms of when I'm looking at CVs, in terms of the tenure of kind of their jumps and hops that have brought them to their CV to my desk, it's so hard to judge. I personally, and maybe that's just because of my experience, I don't judge people harshly for moving around, because what if that role was terrible for them? What if their last manager was not a great person to learn from, and was causing them anguish and all this kind of stuff? Like, so you just don't know the full story, and they're never going to include that on the CV. All you can do is kind of, when I'm looking at CVs, I'm looking for like I guess keywords of like, well, if I have an idea of a role, kind of the skills and talents I would hope the person would have, I'm looking that they've called them out. And then I'm looking for, once I get through the interview stage, it's things like tell me about a time, and kind of really trying to tease out what experience they've had and what projects they've delivered, because it's going to be in the nuance and detail that you can really understand the value that they can bring to the role that you're trying to fill.
Yeah. And where do you see your career going? What's the future of Chris Gold look like?
Who knows? Who knows? I think you've just got like you have these kind of lofty career ambitions. I'm not somebody who kind of writes down a too detailed of a plan. I'd like to think that I've still got some upwards trajectory to go, but at the same time, a life where overtime isn't a thing and I live by the beach is it's also pretty appealing. So it's a flip of a coin on any particular day, which direction it's going to go in. So um, I think that right now I'm in a pretty good spot. I'm working on. So I've been in this role for 2 years, and no, rounding 2 years. And you could kind of go, well, I've fixed everything I want to. No, I'm still trying to make this my own, and I'm still trying to make a difference internally. Like I've got, there's a project I'm working on at the moment that should, in my humble opinion, provide a whole lot of value to the business while also making it easier for my team to do their job. It's a win-win from where I sit, but I don't know all the answers. So I'm now working on as a skill for myself, kind of advocacy and influencing within the organization. You can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't convince other people that it's a good idea, it's never going to get legs and run. So that's what I'm trying to work on at the moment, as well as you touched on at the start, trying to use the latest and greatest in technology. Now, control environments in accounting make that difficult. You can't just try a thing for a tool and ends up sending your data to somewhere where it shouldn't be. So you can't just install random software and off you go. But as much as we can, grabbing onto new tools and seeing and kind of playing around with it, because that's going to be where you can find value. Like some of the things I'm doing with my team now, it's been just like a bit of exploration for me or them to go like, I think there must be a better way to do this. Back in like maybe EY, I saw something in an Excel tutorial being like, if it takes more than like 3 keystrokes or like 3 kind of like copy pastes type thing, there's a better way to do it. And kind of I found that I feel like myself, and I feel like in the people I've worked with, people who've wanted to kind of who've seen problems, things that look like they could be better, and wanted to kind of like tidy up the world around them. And that's when you really get into high performing teams.
And for someone starting out in the world of accounting today, what would you say the key skills they need are?
Cool. Okay, so it's a deep foundation in kind of like the basics, like in terms of like your debits and credits, your IFRS standards. This is talking about in terms of like I'm a company accountant who does month-end reporting. So if you're an FP&A person, a tax person, you know what you need to do. I don't. So it's those two, and then I think it's a curiosity about technology. It's a how can I use these new skills? Like the big one I'm promoting within my team at the moment is Power Query, which is kind of like a pseudo SQL version of Excel, which does a lot of things like back when I started, if you had 10 of the same report where the columns were the same and you needed them all together so you could turn it into a pivot table or a sum, a junior person would have to go copy, paste to get it all into one big file.
Yeah.
That was junk work because it's not fulfilling.
Tedious. Yeah.
Tedious. Nobody likes to do it. And it would a lot of the time get done wrong because, wouldn't you know it, one of the files in the middle had the columns in the wrong order. And you wouldn't know that until you got to the end. And you go, oh, well, now we have to start again. There are tools now that do that for you if you can have a think about it and kind of build that into your processes. So I always say to my team that AI can have my job. Like, in terms of the bits that I think that it will be coming for first, let them have it. It's the understanding of the whys and the narratives that, at least for now, I don't think that AI is going to be able to do as much. And that's the place I like to play. So if it can kind of take off the tedious levels, the things where like I need to do 100 times, does this match that? Nobody enjoys doing that work. So if the robots can do that, fantastic. It's like if my grandfather didn't have a calculator and had to add things manually. Nobody is wishing back for those days. Nobody's wishing for the days before Excel, well, maybe. But it's all about like, well, the new technology, it's new tools. Like I was speaking to somebody recently talking about that concept of like teachers back in the day saying, well, you never walk around with a calculator in your pocket. Turns out we will. To argue against using tools, it would be like saying to a chippy, like, don't use a hammer, use the back of your hand to drive nails. Like, no.
Would you say that accounting is almost turning into like interpretation of data as well, and how to do that?
100%. A lot of the challenges that I'm dealing with at the moment are understanding APIs. So that is like we get information from data sources from our suppliers, our customers, all that kind of stuff. And then it's a matter of like kind of doing a little bit of data architecture, I think might be the term, or data science to understand, well, like, this means that over in this table, this is labeled the same, but means another thing over here. How do we translate them so that they can be used together to enrich things? Things like dates and times, like to understand, like, well, the definitions over here, that's in Pacific Standard Time in on the west coast of the US because it's an Amazon thing. And then here we are in London, it's on GMT. So understanding like when is midnight and knowing within your data the definitions of all of these things. It's not that's a whole job. I think that as in my role as an accountant, it's just knowing when things, like just knowing, being aware of these risks and knowing when to be able to call in the experts.
Interesting. Well, look, I think you've given us a really great overview tonight of what your job, what it was first, what it is, and evolving to. And I think really uni students out there should really be looking at this and considering this, because we have so many people graduating as data scientists and things like that. But if they understand that this job has elements of that, as well as the fun parts where you're actually like, talking business and debit credit, like you're saying, I love math. Like it's great. So
if you think about it as a Sudoku puzzle, and if you think about it as the ability to kind of muck into like the most important business issues within a company, accountants are always going to be in the room for those kind of things. So those opportunities are out there. I think that it certainly doesn't look like a sexy career from the outside, but
it's a name. It needs a new name.
It needs a new name. Okay, we're gonna. I don't know who we write to, but let's write to them.
You're gonna agree to disagree on this.
It's okay. Business performance coaches. That's the new one.
I think you're going to get a lot of work ahead of you. Trust me, with all the entrepreneurs out there coming through today, like you're definitely going to nail that. Well, look, Chris, it's been really great chatting to you tonight, and thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Yvette. It's been fantastic. Can't wait to see how the platform goes. Really exciting.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.